Hi, welcome. I'm Susan Kitzman. I'm the current president of Thunder Bay Island Preservation Society. Historic overview shows that the Thunder Bay Island is a unique to this area as its composition is limestone partially covered by a very thin soil deposit and vegetative matter. The exposed bedrock is a rare L-var system. L-vars occur on bedrock which has shallow soil and is home to rare plant species. L-vars occur in only two other places on our globe, the Baltics and County Clare in Ireland. Some of the rare plants found here are butterwort, calypso orchid, ram's head lady slipper, dwarf lake iris, Douglas hawthorn, sedge, and false pennyroyal. With the treacherous reef that off the coast of the island, Thunder Bay is the second oldest lighthouse to be constructed on the Great Lakes. In July of 1982, the lighthouse was completed and Jesse Muncie was appointed the first keeper. Stephen Tung's book relates many of the problems and hardships the keepers and their families endured. In 1835, William Cullings became the first fisherman to fish from the island in his Mackinaw boat. By 1846, there were 31 fishing boats and 160 people on the island affiliated with the fishery operations. To put this time in perspective, what was to become our town of Alpena was a Chippewa village. Henry Schoolcraft anglicized the Chippewa word meaning partridge and named the county Alpena. It wasn't until 1855 that four timber barons, including George N. Fletcher, purchased county land for their lumber trade and named their new town by the river mouth, Fremont. Daniel Carter's family were the first non-native residents, and he was put in charge of our first post office in 1857. By 1876, saw a life-saving station appropriated and built on the island. 1877, Captain John Persons began serving 38 years of service as a keeper. 8 men also were enlisted, and a three-story life-saving station was constructed, with the third story being the lookout.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's showing some of the fossilized crustaceans. Captain Persons raised his family on the island, living there all year long, necessitated them being self-sufficient, keeping livestock, poultry, and growing their own vegetables. His wife Celia oversaw supplies donated by the National Relief Association to clothe victims and cooked many meals for them as well. In winter, they'd attach skis to the hull of a boat to cross the frozen bay to town. By 1914, the life-saving station merged to become the U.S. Coast Guard. With technical advancements, the radar station was closed and the light automated in 1980. This is stating the mission of the Preservation Society to assure the continuation of the cultural heritage and environmental importance of the island.
I think it continues on. There you go. Is this where you want me to start?
Please.
Okay. You can see from the slides that once the Preservation Society was formed and got going, we had a lot of structural damage to deal with the station that sat just deteriorating from 1980 until 1996. The first project that we started was the roof on the keeper's quarters, and it was leaking badly. And because the station is listed on the National Historic Register, any repair or actually major project that we take on has to bring those buildings back to its original historic integrity. So the roof on the keeper's quarters became a standing seam metal roof, which was on the building when it was constructed in 1868. The screen on the right side shows our second project, which was the repair of the stucco on the exterior of the tower. When the Coast Guard closed it up, they also boarded up the windows that had provided a lot of ventilation for the tower. So during those winter months of being closed, the condensation started to freeze over the wintertime and then would heave the stucco on the outside of the tower. So we had a lot of the gunite surface, which was cracked and was heaving away from the tower. So we were very fortunate to receive grants for both of these projects, but the tower repair was extremely expensive. And so we were able to work in conjunction with the Michigan Lighthouse Assistance Program, which is funded by these specialty license plates that you purchase in the state of Michigan that have a lighthouse on them, and also the MDEQ, which was their name at the time, and we received a coastal zone management grant to do the repair on the tower. It was quite an undertaking because the logistics of any project out there are really daunting, but you can see there's not a lot of really sophisticated electrical equipment that we can use. So the repair shows men in little carts and pulleys and in boats and chairs going up and down.
I had a question. Was the tower constructed with a stucco base?
The original tower was stone and brick, and then in 1857 it was raised an additional 10 feet to increase the focal plane of the actual tower. So when they increased the height, that 10 feet, they encapsulated the entire exterior surface of the tower with gunite, so the shotcrete. Go ahead. These obviously are dramatic before and afters of some of the projects. You can see the slide on the left shows really a very early preservation group trip out to the island right after we had secured a lease with the Coast Guard to maintain the buildings and the island itself. So we were in the process of removing the plywood that was put over the windows for security reasons. But you can see some of the damage on the roof. The shingled roof was really leaking. It was in really bad disrepair. And you can see the nice shiny metal roof. So move on. The next project that we took on, obviously, was down on the fog signal building, which is still in existence. It's a building from 1906 or 1907, depending on what year it was started and finished. But it still exists today. None of the operating equipment for the fog signal are inside of the building anymore, but the doors that were put on were in a really bad, deteriorated state, and so we replaced all the doors on the fog signal building, both for security and to help secure the building itself, because a lot of water and weather was leaching in. So, and inside, this is fortunately my passion, but it's a really slow go. When the keeper's quarters was built in 1868, it stayed that way. In the footprint of the keeper's quarters is primarily the same. On the first floor, the second floor was modified a little, but we were very fortunate. They did an updating or a remodel, I guess you'd want to call it, in 1955. And when that remodel was finished, the gentleman who occupied this room, Paul Rykoff, was still alive, and this became his room. So he supplied us with pictures of the very Spartan furnishings that he had in his room. And so we did that room and turned it back into the same condition that it was when he occupied it. We, however, took the closet and created static museum displays in the 3 different cubicles that there are there. We have one that's devoted to the life-saving service, one to the Lighthouse and the Coast Guard service, and then the 3rd cubicle is actually filled with artifacts and military uniforms that Mr. Reichoff has donated to the society. So that static display stays in year-round. We put the closet doors on for, weather and keep it from getting damaged. We also took it upon ourselves to reconstruct a portion. This is basically just a simulation of what was there, but to make getting supplies there easier, there was a tramway that went from the keeper's quarters and the oil can building that you see in this picture all the way. It was like 1,220 feet long to the south end of the island, where there was a dock at the time where ships would pull up and offload supplies. We felt that was important for the public to see how difficult it was logistically to move things back and forth. And so one of our life members found a cart that was very similar to the one that was in play at that time. And so we reinstalled a portion of that tramway track and have put a cart on that was very similar to the cart that was used on the island at that particular time. Now, we have since built a little cedar shingled kiosk over the cart and an interpretive sign there that will tell the visiting public how important this tramway was to getting supplies up from the south end of the island to the keeper's quarters, where they were put in play. This is a really interesting picture, because as the island was getting ready, the Coast Guard had deemed it excess property. But during their tenure there, they had created several contaminated sites that were their dumps, essentially, because they didn't bring a lot of their toxic materials back to shore. So that soil had to be remediated before the island that is transferred could be transferred. It had to be able to transfer with a clean title. And so what you see is a company that pulled a barge up and anchored it to the east side of the island and offloaded this heavy equipment. And then they had to clean up the soil. It is bagged. That's what those white bags are. And then they brought fresh soil back to fill in the dump sites that had to be cleaned. So that's what this slide shows. Now, the next series of slides that you'll see are basically the next whole development of projects that we have continued. And the first section will be the new roof that was put on the fog signal building in 2018. Again, because the fog signal building is also on the National Register of Historic Places, the roof that we had to put back on was the original roof, which was a Victorian metal shingled roof. We were so fortunate, with the help of the State Historic Preservation Office, to locate the company who had supplied the shingles in 1906, is still in business today. They are located in Texas, and we were able to order the very same shingles that were put on that building in the very same color. And so that's what these pictures portray. A lot of the holes in the roof had to be repaired with the same type of rough cut boards that were put on the roof initially. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see the dramatic improvement of this building. This also was a grant-funded project. We were so fortunate that, again, the Michigan Lighthouse Assistance Program, the Besser Foundation, one of our donors, helped bring this project to fruition. And then in 2019, again, a grant-funded project with the U.S. Lighthouse Service assistance, we replaced and repainted the top of the lantern room. The windows that were in there were the original windows that were put in 1857 when the tower was extended that 10 feet. And so the laminated glass had become so brittle, both from sand and wind and sun exposure, that as they were trying to take out each window, even the ones that didn't have bullet holes in them, literally cracked and disintegrated in their hands. And so our contractor is an incredible firm, local firm, Meridian Contracting, and they opted to make sure that all 10 window panes in the tower were replaced. And so we have all new windows, and the entire top, the metal top of the tower, because it was painted repeatedly with lead paint, had to be stripped and then primed and then repainted. So the whole top of the tower has been redone. It's an absolutely beautiful job. We couldn't be happier. And then you'll see in the next series of slides, this perspective is not one that most people will ever get a chance to experience. But again, our contractors are an incredible group, and I don't think there were any of our members that would have been daring enough to get out there with a safety harness and hang off the top of the light tower and paint that ventilation ball and the lightning rod attached to it. But it was done, and it's a beautiful job. This is the inside. Again, I think we should have put this slide first so that you could appreciate the job once it was completed. Again, many, many layers of lead paint that were stripped and then primed and repainted. So the top of the tower is a beautiful, beautiful job. The next series is where we are now. The boathouse that was constructed there, and this boathouse blueprint is the original from when this Coast Guard boathouse was constructed in 1916. So it was built on wooden cribs that were filled with rocks. Unfortunately, over 100 years of the forces of nature have taken its toll on the boathouse. The only thing that is keeping the rest of this structure up and in place are inside. I don't know if you can see them very well here, but there are two huge timbers left from the boat hoist that was in there. They go all the way to the bedrock in the lake bottom and then extend all the way up. Those really are the only two timbers that are keeping the boathouse in place. Now, the bad thing of it is, it's a sad state to see a historic building fall into this state of disrepair. The reality of the situation is the boathouse, as it stands and where it's located, does not provide a point of access for the public. And our partner in this and the property owner on the south end of the island, which is the Charter Township of Alpena, recognizes that it was not to any of our advantage to try to do the repairs needed in the millions of dollars necessary to restore the boathouse, because you are still over 700 feet from reaching dry land on the shore. So the boathouse is the property of the Bureau of Land Management. Their plan is to finish up their Section 106 review with a state historic preservation office, which is basically a study that gives the public the indication that to deconstruct this building, as long as we do something onshore to explain its historic significance and the role that it played in this light station, will mitigate the effects of it being deconstructed. And so that report is now finished, and the Bureau of Land Management will be putting out bids for the deconstruction of the remaining part of the boathouse in the spring of 2021. The Township of Alpena applied for ownership of the remaining property on Thunder Bay Island last year. And so that application is already in play, and the Bureau is working on getting the necessary documents in place so that the property can be conveyed to the township. And the reason our preservation society joined with the township in this transfer process was because a government entity could transfer it to another government entity without any cost. But if they were to transfer it to a 501c3 like the Preservation Society, we would be left with the responsibility of paying the federal government half of the fair market value of this property, and they got to establish what the fair market value was. So it didn't make any sense when we had a willing local government partner to take the financial liability of trying to pay for this. And the township has been very supportive of our efforts. We have a management agreement in place, and it works very well for both parties. They are very supportive of us, and in the last 3 budgets for the township, the Preservation Society has been included in their budget allocation, which allows us funds to continue to do our mission. And so that's where it stands. We're hoping that maybe in late 2021 or the latest 2022, that the Bureau of Land Management, the Department of Interior, will be able to transfer the remaining island to the township, because that is the last piece that we need in place to be able to build a new dock system, a new point of access that will make it possible for the public to be able to land and visit there safely, because right now you can see that it is not a safe access situation.
The boathouse was constructed in the lake, and then there was a dock system that connected it to the island. This does not denote any high water, as it has been reported before. Every spring, we're not quite sure what it's going to look like.
Too much ice, it'll be gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, you want me to go to the webcam?
Yes, actually, we thought it was really a great link for any participants to be able to understand. On the south end of the island, the Great Lakes Environmental Research Lab installed a webcam back in 2014. And if you go to that site, you'll see this webcam rotates every 15 minutes and takes a different photo. And then those photos are updated each hour. But it's a great perspective to sit on shore and look at the wave height conditions and actually be able to see the light tower and the keeper's quarters out there.
If you want to find this website, it's real easy to just go to Google and type in Thunder Bay Island webcam. And when I did it, it popped right up as the first option to see or to find this page. Are there any questions from people in on Zoom? In the audience here? Any
Animals are on that island.
Jackrabbits and maybe a raccoon once in a while. It really depends on how heavy a winter ice we have, because we have had a coyote out there, but it depends on if there's enough ice freeze over for them to get from North Point to the island. So we really don't have a lot. We have a lot of nesting birds, and so when you see no nest of birds, you know we probably had a coyote. But you know, the rabbits are fairly consistent, but the eagles and the other birds out there kind of keep the population under control. So
Many varieties of spiders.
yeah.
Any other questions? None from the Zoom audience. With that, from the Association of Lifelong Learners perspective, we appreciate Sue and Susan for stopping by and letting us know about the updates. I personally was out there a number of years ago, and it certainly looks better now than it did. But it'd be easier time landing than when I landed out there. But anyways, we'll hope for some updates in the future as things progress on getting a more easy access to the public. With that, then, thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.